My name is Bertha. I'm 68 years old. And at my granddaughter's 7th birthday party, my entire family stood up and walked out, saying they had better things to do. Can you imagine? Can you even picture what that feels like? To see the light drain from a 7-year-old's eyes as her own father, my son, smirks and says, "Well, this was fun, but we've got real plans now." To watch my daughter-in-law roll her eyes and mutter under her breath that this whole thing was just a waste of time. To feel my heart shatter as my beautiful granddaughter looks up at me with those innocent brown eyes and whispers, "Grandma Bertha, did I do something wrong?" Before I take you into this story, this nightmare that still keeps me awake at night, please, I'm begging you, like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Because betrayal like this, it knows no borders. It doesn't care if you're in New York or Nairobi, London or Lagos. Pain is universal, and maybe, just maybe, sharing mine will help heal yours. You want to know what hurts the most? It's not even what they did to me. It's what they did to her. To my granddaughter, little Emma. 7 years old, and they crushed her spirit like it was nothing. I had spent 3 days preparing for that party. 3 days. My arthritic hands stringing up pink and purple streamers because those are her favorite colors. I baked her cake from scratch, a unicorn cake with rainbow layers inside, because she's obsessed with unicorns. Every detail was planned with love, every decoration placed with the hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be the day our family could come together and celebrate something pure and beautiful. The morning of the party, Emma was bouncing off the walls with excitement. "Grandma Bertha, is everyone really coming? Even Daddy? Even Aunt Sarah?" Her little face was glowing with joy, and I promised her yes, everyone would be there. Everyone who loved her would celebrate her special day. What a fool I was. They arrived fashionably late, if you can call 45 minutes late fashionable. My son Marcus walked in first, already checking his phone before he'd even said hello to his daughter. His wife Jennifer followed behind him, looking like she'd rather be getting a root canal. My daughter Sarah came next with her husband, both of them scanning the room like they were calculating how quickly they could escape. But Emma didn't notice. God bless her innocent heart, she didn't see the annoyance on their faces or the way they whispered to each other in the corner. She just saw her family, and she was radiant with happiness. For exactly 1 hour and 17 minutes, they pretended to care. They sang "Happy Birthday" like it was a chore. They watched her blow out the candles with the enthusiasm of people waiting for a bus. When she opened her presents I had wrapped because half of them didn't even bother bringing anything. They scrolled through their phones. Then Marcus got a text message. I watched his face light up in a way it never did when he looked at his daughter. "Oh, the Johnsons are having a barbecue," he announced to Jennifer. "They want us to come over." And that's when my world collapsed. "Well," Jennifer said, standing up and brushing imaginary crumbs off her designer jeans, "I guess we should head out then." This was nice. Nice? Nice? We're talking about your daughter's birthday party, and you call it nice? Sarah immediately perked up. "Oh, are you going to the Johnsons?" "We weren't invited, but maybe we could." "Sure," Marcus shrugged. "I'll text them." And just like that, they were all standing up, gathering their purses, checking their phones, making plans that didn't include the birthday girl who was still sitting at the table with frosting on her cheek and hope in her eyes. "Wait," I said, my voice shaking. "Wait, you can't just leave. It's Emma's birthday. We haven't even had cake together. We haven't played any games. She's been looking forward to this for weeks." Marcus had the audacity, the absolute audacity, to smirk at me. Not smile. Smirk. Like I was some pathetic old woman who didn't understand how the real world worked. "Mom, she's 7. She won't even remember this next week." Won't remember? Won't remember? I wanted to scream at him that I remember every birthday my mother missed, every disappointment, every moment I felt abandoned. But my voice caught in my throat because Emma was looking at all of us, confusion replacing the joy on her little face. "But Daddy," she whispered, "you said you'd stay for the whole party. You promised." Jennifer rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes at a 7-year-old child. "Emma, don't be dramatic. We've been here long enough." Long enough? They'd been there barely over an hour. I had planned activities, games, I had her favorite movies ready to watch. I had prepared a whole afternoon of love and attention for this precious little girl, and they were dismissing it like it was nothing. This is ridiculous. I finally found my voice. "You can't just walk out on your daughter's birthday party. Watch us," Jennifer snapped. And then, and this is the part that still makes my blood boil, she looked at Emma and said, "Sweetie, you understand, right? Grown-ups have important things to do. Important things. More important than your own child's happiness." Sarah and her husband were already putting on their coats, eager to follow along like sheep. "Thanks for hosting, Mom," Sarah called over her shoulder, like this was just another casual get-together and not the systematic destruction of a little girl's special day. And then they were gone. Just like that. The door slammed shut and the house fell silent except for the sound of my heart breaking and Emma's quiet sniffles. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes filling with tears. "Grandma Bertha, did I do something wrong? Why didn't they want to stay? Oh, God. Oh, my sweet God. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that some people are just cruel? How do you tell an innocent child that her own father values a barbecue invitation more than her happiness? How do you find words for that kind of heartbreak?" I knelt down beside her chair, my old knees screaming in protest, and I pulled her into my arms. She smelled like vanilla cake and childhood dreams, and I held her while she cried into my shoulder. "You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. Not one single thing. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, and this was one of those times." But inside, I was dying. The humiliation was crushing me. The rage was building like a volcano about to erupt. They had not only disrespected me, their mother, the woman who had raised them, fed them, loved them unconditionally for decades, but they had traumatized an innocent child in the process. For the next 3 hours, I watched my granddaughter try to salvage her ruined party. She played with her new toys alone while I cleaned up the decorations that no one had bothered to admire. She asked if we could still play the games I'd planned, even though it was just the two of us. She ate her cake with forced enthusiasm, trying so hard to pretend she wasn't devastated. But I could see it. I could see how her shoulders slumped when she realized they really weren't coming back. I could see how she kept glancing at the door, hoping maybe they'd change their minds. I could see the exact moment when her 7-year-old heart accepted that she simply wasn't important enough to stay for. That night, after I tucked her into bed and she finally fell asleep clutching her new stuffed unicorn, I sat in my kitchen and wept. I wept for her innocence, for her broken heart, for the family that had failed us both so completely. But then something changed inside me. The tears stopped, and in their place came something much more dangerous. Clarity. I didn't cry after that. I didn't yell. I didn't call them up and beg them to explain themselves. I didn't do any of the things they probably expected from old, desperate Bertha. But I did something else. Something they never saw coming. You see, they thought they knew me. They thought I was just the family doormat, the grandmother they could use for babysitting and holiday hosting and emergency loans, then discard when something better came along. They thought wrong. I had been the family foundation for so long that they'd forgotten what happens when you remove the foundation from under a house. Everything collapses. For 40 years, I had been their safety net. When Marcus needed money for his first car, who do you think he called? When Sarah couldn't make her mortgage payment 3 years ago, who do you think bailed her out? When they needed someone to watch the kids last minute, who was always available? When holidays needed hosting, who opened their home without question? Me. Always me. Reliable, dependable, taken for granted Bertha. But that night, looking at my beautiful granddaughter's tear-stained pillow, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided I was done being their convenient option. I was done being treated like a second-class citizen in my own family. I was done enabling their selfishness. The very next day, they called me in a panic. You want to know why? Oh, you'll find out. But first, let me tell you about the years of disrespect that led to this moment. Because Emma's birthday party wasn't an isolated incident, it was the final straw in a lifetime of being overlooked, undervalued, and taken for granted. When Marcus was growing up, I worked double shifts as a nurse to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads after his father walked out. I sacrificed everything for my children, my social life, my dreams, my own happiness. I told myself it would be worth it when they were older, when they appreciated what I'd done for them. But appreciation never came. Instead, I got entitled adults who saw me as an ATM with emotions. Marcus married Jennifer 8 years ago, and from day one, she made it clear that I was not welcome in their perfect little world. She'd make snide comments about my cooking, my house, my old-fashioned ways of raising children. She'd schedule family events without telling me, then act surprised when I found out through Emma's innocent chatter. And Marcus? My own son? He stood by and let it happen. Worse than that, he participated. He'd laugh at her jokes about his silly old mother. He'd agree when she said I was too involved in their lives. He'd nod along when she complained that I was overstepping boundaries by wanting to spend time with my granddaughter. Sarah wasn't much better. After I helped her avoid foreclosure, she couldn't even be bothered to call me on Mother's Day. When I invited her family for dinner, she'd show up an hour late with store-bought dessert and leave right after eating. She treated my home like a restaurant, expected to be served, fed, and entertained without contributing anything in return. But the worst part? The absolute worst part was how they talked about me to Emma. They'd make comments about Grandma's old house and Grandma's weird rules right in front of her. They'd roll their eyes when I suggested activities or outings. They were teaching her to disrespect me, to see me as an obligation rather than a blessing. I started to notice how Emma's excitement about visiting me was diminishing. How she'd hesitate before hugging me, like she'd been told not to get too attached. How she'd look confused when I'd suggest we do something special together, as if the idea of spending quality time with grandparents was foreign to her. They were poisoning our relationship, and I was letting it happen because I was so desperate to maintain contact with my granddaughter. Well, I was done being desperate. The morning after the birthday party disaster, Marcus called me at 7 a.m. His voice was tight with panic. Mom, we have a problem. The bank called about our mortgage payment. We're going to be late again, and they're threatening foreclosure. We need you to. I hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Sarah. Mom, I just talked to Marcus, and he said you hung up on him? What's going on? Listen, I need to ask you a favor. Tommy needs to go to this summer camp, but it's $3,000 and we just don't have it right now. Could you? I hung up again. Then Jennifer called. Oh, sweet, entitled Jennifer, who had dismissed my granddaughter's party as a waste of time. Her voice was syrupy with fake concern. Bertha, I'm worried about you. Marcus said you seemed upset yesterday. I hope you're not taking things personally. You know how busy we all are. Anyway, we were wondering if you could watch Emma this weekend while we go to that wedding in Chicago. I know it's last minute, but... Click. For the first time in decades, I had hung up on all of them. And you know what? It felt magnificent. But that was just the beginning. You see, over the years, I had become the family bank. Every emergency, every opportunity, every crisis somehow became my financial responsibility. I had co-signed Marcus's mortgage when his credit was too poor to qualify a loan. I had a joint account with Sarah that she used for emergencies that seemed to happen every month. I had credit cards that I'd given them access to for just-in-case situations that had somehow become everyday expenses. I controlled more of their financial stability than they realized. And that Tuesday morning, I began systematically removing myself from all of it. First, I called the bank and removed myself as a co-signer from Marcus's mortgage. It was perfectly legal. I had that right. I also closed the joint account with Sarah, transferring the remaining balance to my personal account. I canceled the credit cards they'd been using and had new ones issued with different numbers. Then I did something that would have been unthinkable to the old Bertha. I called a lawyer. You want to know about power? Real power isn't shouting or making threats. Real power is quiet, methodical, and absolutely devastating when deployed correctly. My lawyer helped me understand exactly how much financial control I'd been giving away over the years. We totaled up the loans I'd made that were never repaid, the credit card bills I'd been covering, the temporary help that had become permanent dependence. The number was staggering, over $150,000 in the past 5 years alone. But here's what really opened my eyes: Emma's college fund. For 7 years, I had been putting money into an education savings account for my granddaughter. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone, I'd contributed. I'd planned to give her the most precious gift possible. A debt-free education, a head start in life that I never had. But when I reviewed the account statements with my lawyer, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Marcus had been withdrawing from that account. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Money I had saved for Emma's future was being used for their vacations, their lifestyle, their wants. They had been stealing from their own daughter's future. That's when I knew I had made the right decision. That's when I knew there was no going back. The phone calls became more frequent and increasingly desperate. First, it was just Marcus and Sarah. Then their spouses joined in. Then extended family members started calling, begging me to be reasonable and remember family comes first. Family comes first? Where was that philosophy when they walked out on Emma's birthday? Where was that sentiment when they were rolling their eyes at a 7-year-old's excitement? The breaking point came on Thursday. Jennifer showed up at my house unannounced, Emma in tow. She marched right up to my front door and started pounding on it like the police. Bertha, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I opened the door, and there was my precious granddaughter, looking confused and frightened, being used as a human shield by her own mother. Emma, sweetie, why don't you go play in the backyard while Mommy and Grandma talk? I suggested gently. No, Jennifer snapped. She stays right here. She needs to see this. Then she turned those cold eyes on me. What you're doing is selfish and cruel. You're hurting this entire family because your feelings got hurt at a stupid birthday party. Stupid birthday party. There it was again. Emma, I said calmly, kneeling down to her level, would you like to go pick some flowers from Grandma's garden? I'll come find you in just a minute. Emma nodded and skipped away, and I stood back up to face the woman who had just called her daughter's celebration stupid for the second time in 1 week. Don't you ever, I said, my voice low and dangerous, use that child as a prop in your manipulation games again. And don't you dare call her birthday party stupid one more time or she might hear you. Jennifer's face twisted with rage. You think you can control us by cutting off the money? You think we need you? We'll manage just fine without your guilt trips and your meddling. Good, I replied simply. Then you won't mind that I've removed myself from Marcus's mortgage and closed the joint account with Sarah. You won't mind that I've canceled the credit cards you've been using. And you definitely won't mind that I've frozen Emma's college fund until I can find a way to prevent you from stealing from it anymore. The color drained from her face. You can't do that. I just did. We'll fight this. We'll take you to court. With what money? The money you no longer have access to because you've been cut off from your free ride. That's when she started screaming. Right there on my front porch, this grown woman started screaming like a toddler having a tantrum. You bitter old witch. You're just jealous because we have lives and you don't. You're trying to ruin us because your own life is pathetic. I looked at this woman. This person who had married my son, who was raising my granddaughter, who I had helped financially for years, and I felt nothing but pity. Jennifer, I said quietly, I'm not ruining you. I'm simply no longer preventing you from facing the consequences of your own choices. There's a difference. She grabbed Emma and stormed off, but not before screaming over her shoulder, you'll never see her again. You'll never see Emma again. And you know what? That threat might have worked on the old Bertha. The old Bertha would have crumbled, apologized, begged forgiveness, and written a check to make everyone happy again. But the new Bertha? The new Bertha called her lawyer. You see, what Jennifer didn't know was that I had been documenting everything. Every instance of neglect, every cruel comment made in front of Emma, every time they'd used me for money while treating me like garbage. I had witnesses, I had evidence, and I had something else. Grandparent rights in my state. If they wanted to play hardball, I was ready. Because this wasn't about money anymore, and it wasn't about my hurt feelings. This was about Emma, and I would fight heaven and hell to protect her from the damage their selfishness was causing. The irony was beautiful. By trying to punish me, they had walked right into a trap of their own making. Without my financial support, Marcus couldn't make his mortgage payments. Without access to my credit cards, Jennifer couldn't maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. Without the joint account, Sarah couldn't pay for Tommy's activities and school expenses. Within 2 weeks, their carefully constructed house of cards began to collapse. Marcus called me crying, actually crying, explaining that they were 3 weeks away from foreclosure. Sarah showed up at my door with her husband, both of them begging me to reconsider. Even extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly started reaching out, trying to convince me to forgive and forget. But the most telling moment came when Emma herself called me. Grandma Bertha, her little voice whispered into the phone, "Mommy and Daddy are fighting a lot. They keep saying your name, and Mommy cries sometimes." Did I make everyone mad at my party? My heart shattered into a million pieces. This beautiful, innocent child was blaming herself for her parents' financial crisis. She thought somehow her birthday party had caused all this chaos. "Oh, sweetheart," I said, fighting back tears, "none of this is your fault. Not one bit of it. Adults sometimes have problems that have nothing to do with children, and this is one of those times. But I miss you, Grandma. When can I come visit?" That's when I knew I had to act. Not for Marcus, not for Sarah, and definitely not for Jennifer. But for Emma. I called my lawyer immediately. "I want to file for visitation rights," I told him. "And I want to know what it takes to prove that a child is being emotionally harmed by her parents' behavior." The legal process was swift and brutal. When they received the court papers, Marcus called me in a rage. "You're taking us to court? Your own family? Have you lost your mind?" "I'm protecting my granddaughter from parents who use her as a weapon and blame her for their financial problems," I replied calmly. "If you don't like it, maybe you should have thought about that before you walked out on her birthday party." The beauty of the legal system is that it doesn't care about your feelings or your excuses. It cares about facts. And the facts were damning. My lawyer presented evidence of their pattern of emotional neglect. The birthday party incident was just the tip of the iceberg. We had documentation of times they'd promised Emma activities, then canceled at the last minute for more important plans. We had witnesses who could testify to their dismissive treatment of both Emma and me at family gatherings. We had financial records showing they'd been stealing from their daughter's college fund. But the most powerful evidence was Emma herself. When the court-appointed child advocate interviewed her, she innocently described a pattern of disappointment and broken promises. She talked about how sad it made her when her parents left her party early. She mentioned how confused she was about why Mommy and Daddy seemed angry all the time now. The judge was not impressed with Marcus and Jennifer's excuses. In the end, I got exactly what I wanted: guaranteed visitation rights and a voice in major decisions affecting Emma's welfare. The court also ordered that Emma's college fund be placed in a trust that only I could manage, ensuring her parents could never steal from it again. But the real victory came 3 months later. Marcus and Jennifer's marriage was crumbling under the financial pressure. Without my support, they couldn't maintain their lifestyle, and they were taking their frustrations out on each other. The stress of potential foreclosure, maxed-out credit cards, and mounting bills was destroying them from the inside. Sarah's family was struggling too. Without access to my emergency fund, they'd had to make actual sacrifices, selling their boat, downgrading their cars, cutting back on expensive activities for the kids. Her husband started questioning why they'd been so dependent on me in the first place, which led to some very uncomfortable conversations about entitlement and responsibility. The extended family drama was delicious. Aunts and uncles who had taken sides against me suddenly found themselves being asked for loans and support. Cousins who had thought my financial contributions were no big deal quickly discovered what it meant to be the family bank. The same relatives who had called me unreasonable for cutting them off were now complaining about being hit up for money by Marcus and Sarah. Everyone finally understood exactly how much I had been carrying this family and how entitled they had all become. But you know what the sweetest revenge was? It wasn't their financial struggles or their marriage problems or their family drama. It was Emma. With court-mandated visitation, I got to spend real, quality time with my granddaughter without interference. And away from her parents' constant negativity and stress, she blossomed. She started smiling again, laughing again, looking forward to our time together. I took her on the trips I'd always wanted to share with her. We went to the zoo, the museum, the beach. We had tea parties and movie marathons and craft sessions. I taught her to bake, to garden, to appreciate the simple joys that her parents were too busy and stressed to notice. Most importantly, I showed her what unconditional love looked like. Not love that came with conditions and expectations and disappointments, but love that was steady and reliable and constant. And slowly, Emma started to heal from the damage her parents' selfishness had caused. 6 months after the birthday party disaster, Emma asked me a question that broke my heart and filled it with hope at the same time. Grandma Bertha, why didn't Mommy and Daddy want to stay at my party? I had been dreading this moment, but I was ready for it. Sometimes, sweetheart, people get so caught up in what they think is important that they forget what's actually important. Your Mommy and Daddy thought a barbecue was more important than celebrating you, and they were wrong. Very, very wrong. But why were they wrong? Because you are the most important thing in the world. You are precious and special and deserving of people who choose you first, always. And anyone who doesn't see that is missing out on something beautiful. She nodded solemnly, processing this with the seriousness that children bring to life's big questions. Grandma? Yes, sweetheart. You chose me first. And there it was. The moment that made everything worth it. The moment that validated every difficult decision, every burned bridge, every family relationship I'd had to sacrifice. Yes, Emma. I will always choose you first. That night, I tucked her into bed in the room I'd prepared especially for her visits. As I kissed her forehead, she whispered, "I love you, Grandma Bertha." I love you too, sweetheart. More than all the stars in the sky. As I turned off her light and closed the door, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the anger, the humiliation of that birthday party had transformed into something powerful and beautiful. It had given me the strength to break free from a toxic pattern and fight for what really mattered. They thought they could humiliate me, use me, and discard me without consequences. They thought old Bertha would just take it and come crawling back with her checkbook open and her heart bleeding. They were wrong. I had learned something important in my 68 years. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst behaviors. Sometimes protecting the people you love means standing up to the people who are hurting them, even when those people are family. My relationship with Marcus and Sarah will never be the same. Jennifer still treats me with barely concealed contempt when we're forced to interact during custody exchanges. Extended family gatherings are awkward affairs where people choose sides and whisper in corners. But you know what? I sleep peacefully at night knowing I did the right thing. I wake up every morning knowing that my granddaughter is learning what healthy boundaries look like. I go through my days with the satisfaction of knowing that I chose dignity over desperation, self-respect over people-pleasing. And every other weekend, when Emma runs into my arms with pure joy on her face, I'm reminded that some battles are worth fighting, some bridges are worth burning, and some stands are worth taking. The old Bertha would have apologized by now. She would have written checks to solve everyone's problems and pretended the birthday party incident never happened. She would have swallowed her hurt and her anger and gone back to being the family doormat. But that Bertha is gone. In her place stands a woman who knows her worth, who demands respect, and who will fight to the death to protect her granddaughter from the kind of emotional damage that careless, selfish people can cause. They thought they knew me. They thought they could predict my reactions, control my responses, manipulate my emotions. They thought wrong. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments below. Nairobi, Lagos, Toronto, New York, London, wherever you are, your voice matters. Would you have stood up for yourself and your granddaughter, or would you have kept the peace at any cost? And if you can sit through this story of betrayal and strength without subscribing, I have to ask, why turn away when truth is right here in front of you? This isn't just my story. This is the story of every grandmother, every parent, every person who has ever been taken for granted by the people they love most. Hit that subscribe button if you believe that family should lift each other up, not tear each other down. Hit that like button if you think Emma deserved better than parents who valued a barbecue invitation over her happiness. And share this video if you know someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself and demand the respect you deserve. Because at the end of the day, they lost me. They lost my financial support, my emotional labor, my unconditional forgiveness, and my willingness to be their safety net. But most importantly, they lost the opportunity to be the kind of family Emma deserved. And my granddaughter? She finally got to see what real love looks like. Love that doesn't come with conditions. Love that doesn't walk away when something better comes along. Love that chooses her first, always and forever. That's the kind of love every child deserves. And that's the kind of love I'll spend the rest of my life making sure Emma knows she has in me. They thought they could break me at that birthday party. Instead, they freed me. They freed me to become the grandmother Emma needed, the woman I should have been all along, and the person who refuses to accept less than she deserves. And you know what? I've never been happier.